Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's The Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
Coming up on this episode of The Entrepreneurial You.
The thing is, money is meant to flow, just like blood in your body. Money is meant to flow. And the more flow there is, the more life you have, the more freedom and health you have. And money's no different.
Hi, I'm Heneka Watkis-Porter, your inspirational leader and host of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Bookophelia, Patois Apparel, and the Jamaica Stock Exchange. And now, let's go to today's episode. Today's guest is the cash flow expert and financial advocate for the entrepreneur. He is a leading authority teaching entrepreneurs and professionals how to quickly free up and create cash flow today, spending time doing what they love most. He's an author and podcast host of the Chris Miles Money Show that has been featured in U.S. News, CNN Money, and Entrepreneur on Fire. I'm so happy to have on the Entrepreneurial You today, Chris Miles. Welcome, Chris, to the Entrepreneurial You.
Hey, it's a pleasure being here.
What I normally do is ask my guests a fun question before we jump into the thick of things, right? So here's your fun question. Would you rather swim in a pool filled with Kool-Aid or go ice skating on a mountain of frozen lemonade?
Ooh. I probably would rather go ice skating. There's just something that seems gross. I mean, getting Kool-Aid up your nose. I mean, how many weeks would it take to get that out of you? Gross,
Yeah, and all colored and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at least with lemonade, it looks like you might have peed your pants, but, at least, it's not horrible. It's frozen.
Okay, sure enough. I understand that. All right, so let's get ready to rock and roll. But first, your social media handle.
Yes, you can follow me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Money Ripples. That's MoneyRipples. Or you can just follow me on Twitter. It's at Chris C. Miles.
You have a high reputation with your company for getting your clients fast, life-altering financial results. How did that begin? You being the cash flow expert and all.
It's funny because it wasn't intentional. Sometimes life is the best teacher, and it can be it can be great or it can suck. And definitely for me, what was huge was I started out as a financial advisor 15 years ago. Did that for 4 years. And then in 2006, I started to realize that what I was teaching doesn't work. Like, people aren't saving their way to wealth. They're usually doing it through business. They're doing it through other types of investing or things that allow them to do something bigger and better than the conventional taught financial advice, right? And so I quit that. And then a matter of months later, just about 4 months later after I quit being a financial advisor, it was interesting. I was able to retire. And it wasn't because I saved a ton of money. It was because I had cash flow streams coming in. Now, I've also seen the opposite, because a few years later, we had the big recession, right? The Great Recession. And that actually hurt me because I cut off some of those income streams right before that time to try to focus on doing my passion, doing my love in business. And the next thing you know, I was in the hole $16,000 a month and over $1 million in debt.
Wow. And we're not talking Jamaican dollars, people. We're talking US dollars.
Yes, US dollars.
So multiply that by 130.
That's right. It was pretty bad. And so I had no savings at that point, because I used up all my savings trying to get out of that hole. I had no credit left because I was starting to go late. I even lost my house eventually after like a year and a half. I lost my home. I lost a lot of things. I didn't go bankrupt, but I realized I didn't have money and I didn't have credit. I had to get creative. I had to create and produce, and I did it through my business. And it was amazing because all the stuff I was learning, all the ways I learned to be resourceful in that situation is what got me out of that situation. I was able to pay off almost $1 million of that just within the first 3.5 years. And now I'm back at the place again where I can be retired. And in fact, I only work 10 or 20 hours a week in my business anyways and have a wonderful life, and so it's awesome.
That's amazing. You said something earlier that when you were doing financial advising, you recognized that, hey, wait a minute. People, they just can't save their way to wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Right. When did that aha moment? I mean, because it must have taken you, yes, you come to that realization, but it must have taken you some time before it really, really hit you that this is happening.
Yeah, it was hard because when your pocketbook is tied to teaching a certain type of teaching, it's really hard to want to say, hey, I was wrong. I should probably go out of business, right?
But you were wrong and recognized you were wrong and you made more money.
That's true. Eventually I did. Yeah. But it was tough because I was kind of so I like evidence. I like to see that things work. And I realized that when I would inherit other advisors' clients, so advisors would quit or they die and things like that, I would get some of their clients. And those people would have 20 years of advice and help. But I realized they weren't much better off than the other Americans. They were kind of just doing like everybody else. They were saving their 401ks, or mutual funds, retirement accounts, and they weren't getting the kind of results they were hoping for. In fact, even some of them told me, they said, whatever happened to that guy? I hope he's in jail because, man, I lost so much money in the Y2K and things like that, right? Because that's when I became a financial advisor. It was right after Y2K or during that time. And so a lot of them were like, hey, I hope that person is in jail because I lost so much money in the market. And I realized people weren't free. And I ran the numbers and I saw what the market actually was doing. The stock market doesn't produce like they say it does. You really earn less. And when you factor all that in and how much you're supposed to live on, they tell you to live on 3%. So if you save $1 million, that means you live on $30,000 a year, which is nothing. You can't even live on that, right? And that's if you're a millionaire. You have to be a multi-millionaire in the U.S. to retire a middle-class lifestyle. And I realized that was a big problem. Now, I had a hard time leaving that. I thought, well, maybe there's another answer. But I'll tell you, for those of you that are in business or are looking to go in business, I had a brother-in-law, and my brother-in-law came from a family of business owners. And it was after I was a financial advisor for 3 years. And I said, okay, I think I know more about money than he does now. I should go try to see if I can make him a client. So I actually got him to agree to meet with me. I sat down with him and I even brought the best guy from my office to back me up because, two people are more powerful than one, right?
For sure. Yes.
Wore my best suit. I spent hours on a presentation to impress him. And after I got done with my presentation, he said, okay, well, that was a good presentation, Chris. So let me get this straight. If I just give you $10,000 to play with, right? 10,000 American dollars to play with. If I just give you 10,000 to play with, you're saying you can make me 12% in your mutual funds, right? Because back then we believed 12% was real, that you could actually get that return. And I said, well, I can't guarantee that, but yeah, you could. He's like, okay, so that means you help me make $1,200 a year. But Chris, I can take that same $10,000. I could put a down payment on a truck because him and his family owned a few more automotive businesses, right? And they said, I could put a down payment on a truck and I can turn around and sell it a few months later for $20,000 profit.
Didn't that just blow you away?
Yeah. It's like, so either I can make $1,200 in a year with you, or I can make $20,000 in a couple months with me. So Chris, why would I invest with you? And saying the same thing every advisor told me to say, I said it. I said, well, you should be diversified. You should put all your eggs in one basket. Putting money in business, that's risky. And he just kind of smiled at me and said, all right, well, thanks for your time. That was great. And sent me home packing with my tail between my legs. And I'll tell you that was a huge epiphany to me because it was enough to get me to doubt what I was teaching further, right? Because I realized, even when I asked other financial advisors, like, what would you say to him? And they said, I don't know. That's a good answer. And they're like, I would probably invest that way too. And I'm like, well, what the heck am I doing? And that's when I realized I was just a salesman in a suit. I wasn't offering anything that was really helping people that much. And as hard as that is, I mean, even though I know a lot of people that go into financial advising have big hearts, they actually want to help people. And that's why I went in. I wanted to give my dad his life back. I wanted to get him to the point where he hadn't have to work every day of his life and then die working. But I tell you, like, I can't live a lie at the same time. So that's why I left. I said, okay, I can't do this anymore. Especially when I met other millionaires like my brother-in-law. I realized, I said, hey, these guys laugh at financial planning and financial advice, the stuff that you always hear in the media. They laugh at that stuff. They think it's dumb. So why am I doing this? So I quit. I put in my notice. I said, I'm done. See you guys later. I'm going to go teach ballroom dancing and I'll do mortgages. And that's what I did. I did that, but I also got coached by some of those millionaires. And then when I realized that cash flow is what's really important, it's not about how much you save up. It's not the amount of money you have. It's what kind of income does that money create for you, right? Or what kind of money can you help save? How can you get your money making more money for you or saving you more money for you so that you only work because you want to, not because you have to? Whether it's getting you to quit your 9-to-5 job or if it's getting you to, be in your business, but be able to have the choice to work in your business because you love it, not because you need to make money, right? Because you want to serve people, not because you want to make money. There's a whole new level of power that comes. And that's the kind of life I help teach people get.
A lot of persons, and even to this point, they've been advanced in business and they're still not understanding the difference between profit and cash flow. Right. They get it confused a lot of times, beginner entrepreneurs, and sadly, to a smaller extent, those that are in business for some time. Break that down for us, the difference between cash flow and profits.
Yeah. Now, when I talk about cash flow, I actually refer to both. You need both profit and cash flow, right? By what most people call profit and cash flow. So profit's kind of like your net paycheck. Or what's left after you're done paying all your bills? Do you have any money left over to put into savings or to put on a credit card? If you're trying to pay down your debt or whatever it is, or to put in your business if you're trying to launch a business. Profits, whatever's left over after you've paid all your bills. Now, most people refer to cash flow. They refer to it as revenue, really what's called revenue, right? Which is how much money you're making. How much money you're making is like the paycheck you get from work before you pay for all your bills. I look for people to have more profit, both in their business and at home, in the sense that we find ways, like, for example, a lot of people, especially in the United States, we find ways to save them on taxes, sometimes $5,000 to $10,000 a year that they can save that they're paying normally anyways. Can we save on taxes? Can we, pay off debt faster and free up money there? Can we, help you, be able to track your money? Even just tracking your money sometimes can get you to increase your cash flow. And on the flip side, how do we earn more money? Whether it be in your business, whether it's active income, residual, or passive income, which is money you make even when you're sleeping, right? Money you don't have to necessarily work hard for, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of thing that I think we need to address both. You got to have both sides of the equation. How do you save money, and also how do you make more money?
Okay. On that note, we are going to take a break right here, Chris. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the practical ways in which we can manage our cash flow in our businesses and even in our personal lives as well. Peak performers. Success is something that we gradually work towards as an end goal, but we need to be in the right environment to make it happen. Bookophilia is dedicated to providing a space for book, coffee and tea lovers, creatives, educators, students, and professionals who want ideas, innovation, and inspiration. They have a variety of high-quality books, a cafe, events such as book launches, signings, and art exhibitions, and professional services uniquely tailored to your needs, culture, and tastes. Their environment provides for the full literary arts experience, allowing for multifaceted creative expressions. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Bookophilia. Do you want to see the world filled with better leaders? Filling the world with leaders worth following starts with you in your company, organization, or community. On May 4, 2018, join more than 100,000 leaders from around the globe at the world's largest leadership event, LeaderCast Live. Broadcast live from Atlanta to a community near you, LeaderCast Live brings together acclaimed global leaders to create a leadership experience unlike any other. Learn from leaders like Andy Stanley, Michael Hyatt, and Dr. Jim Lear on why it's essential to develop your core values and principles as a leader. Join us at LeaderCast Live and discover the tools you need to lead yourself first so you can lead the way for others. For more information on this can't miss event, visit HenekaWatkis-Porter.com and click on LeaderCast Kingston and invest in the future of your career, your organization, your community, and your world. Welcome back, Chris. We're going to be continuing to talk about this topic of cash flow. Yes, what are some of the ways in which we can manage cash flow in our businesses and personal lives?
The first thing is stop ignoring the money. I'll tell you, especially with those in business, one of the hardest things is they feel like they're too busy to pay attention to what's going on with their money. The thing is, money is meant to flow, just like blood in your body. Money is meant to flow. And the more flow there is, the more life you have, the more freedom and health you have. And money's no different. It's got to flow. And so you need to track the money that's coming in and the money going out. Many, many people will tell you, just pay attention to what you're spending, right? I think that's bull. Pay attention to the money you're making too. Because I'll tell you, when you focus on what you're making, you tend to make more. Whatever you focus on expands and grows. But whatever you ignore will shrink and decay. For example, if you ignore your teeth, you will lose them, right? You ignore your spouse, they will leave you. You ignore your kids, they'll leave you. If you ignore your money, it will also leave you. And so one of the big things I have people do is like, hey, let's start tracking our money. And I'll have them use online tools, things that are free, like Mint, mint.com. They have a great app there that allows you to track your money, both coming in and going out. And really watch and ask yourself, what's really a productive expense for me? And what's destructive? Consumptive expenses aren't bad, but you have to limit those, right? It's kind of like eating fatty foods. Sometimes you can eat a little bit, but don't eat a lot. And same thing with consumptive expenses. You can do things for fun, but just don't overdo it to the point where you're getting more and more stressed out at work, right? And destructive expenses, those are ones you shouldn't be having in the first place. I had one guy who said, who actually was spending $500 a month just drinking alcohol, and him and his wife both agreed that was destructive. He was having a hard time because obviously he was addicted, and that was a hard thing. So I said, hey, if we even cut it back by a couple $100 a month, that's a start. You don't even have to do the whole thing. Don't go cold turkey, but try it. I'll tell you, one of the worst ones I saw was she was a woman. Her and her husband were making $250,000 a year, and they were going into debt. And when we looked at it, I found out that she was spending, and this is no joke, she was spending $5,600 a month just eating out at restaurants. That doesn't include the groceries, which were about $1,000 a month. In total, she was spending almost $7,000 a month eating. And so I said, what if we cut that back to only quote unquote $1,000 a month when you're eating out, right? And by the way, she was working in IT. She was worked with technology and whatnot. But the thing is, like, she was spending so much time trying to make money that she had no time at all for her family or anything. And so we actually got her to cut back her eating out by about $4,500 a month. And by the time we did other things, we saved on taxes, we saved them on like insurance premiums. There's little things we're looking at just in their budget. We found over $70,000 that year that they were able to have back. And I mean, obviously, tell me if that wouldn't change your life if you had an extra $70,000 without having to work harder, right?
It sure would.
Yeah, it was huge.
And like I always say, it's not Jamaican dollars; it's U.S. dollars.
Yeah,
so sure would.
It's a big deal, and it was a big deal for her. I mean, she was very grateful, and she didn't have to stop living life. I really believe you can still have fun and enjoy life, and be a wise steward of the money you have. So that's a big one right there.
You said something that's quite interesting, and let me try and quote you. You said, whatever we focus on expands and grows. Whatever we ignore shrinks and decay. That is awesome. And that, sometimes we don't even, it's called a law of attraction, really.
It is. Absolutely.
It really is a law of attraction. And the more we are conscious of our spending, conscious of how we're managing our money and our resources, the better it is in our lives, in our businesses. Now, break even, because some persons need to even understand the whole concept of break even, because some persons, like I was saying, they see money coming in and and they think, wow, because they're not really focusing, it's actually decaying and dying because they're not focusing on how much they're spending. Like you're saying, they're seeing the money coming in and they're equating that to, I'm making profits and there's a lot of cash happening. Just take us through at the break even point for a business.
Yeah, break-even point is very important because that's the point where you actually start getting paid. right?
Yes.
Like you actually bring home money. This is the part where your spouse loves you. Where I mean, okay, they love you regardless,
I know, right?
but they're gonna
love
love
you
about
more. They love you more.
That's right. They'll love you so much more if you bring home money. So yeah, knowing break even. That there's many people that don't track money in their business, and there's programs out there like QuickBooks, online QuickBooks and things like that you can use to track money in your business. But it's the same principle. You need to find out what it takes to break even. And I'll tell you, you want to find out what's actually working in your business. For example, in business, I find a lot of people, sometimes people spend way too much money on marketing. Sometimes they spend too much money on trainings or seminars, self-help, personal development. Now, I'm somebody who loves to invest in those things, but sometimes people invest in those things with no real goal in mind. I believe that if you're going to invest in something, right? And you notice I say invest, not spend. If you're going to invest in something and have it give you a good return on your money, you want to make sure it's something that's applicable. And so when I see some people, they'll go to every personal development seminar possible, but there's no focus. They're not really aiming for anything. They just want something, right? But they don't know what that something is. If you're very focused saying, you know what, this is what I need. I need to learn more about marketing. Great. Invest in that, right? Invest in that marketing. Don't invest in your retirement plan at work or whatever, right? Like invest in your business, invest in that stock, So yeah, invest in that. If it's about money, then yeah, invest in something that's going to educate you better about money and, how to be more profitable or whatever it might be. But make sure that whatever you're investing in is something that is applicable for you and your business right now, not something that might be applicable someday in the future.
Awesome. And as we are approaching, the final part of our conversation, Chris, I want you to leave with us some tips to ensure, some practical tips to ensure that we manage our cash flow the way we ought to. Just tips on how to go about doing that.
You bet. That like I mentioned, tracking your money is number one. That's always the base. Number two, one thing to do is actually start tracking really what works on your sales end. So in your business, like what actually works, and don't just say, okay, I spent this much on blank, right? But find out what actually is working for you, what kind of return, what kind of money you're making. For example, I realize that podcasts are a great form for me. I have my own podcast show. I have the Chris Miles Money Show that I have, right? I have that show and I pay very little for that show to have it on the air. But I'll tell you, I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars because of that show, because it gets people to know, like, and trust me. And that's the thing. If you're doing something in marketing, for example, what allows people to know, like, and trust you? What can you invest in that you can spend the least amount of money to get the biggest return? And so look for that. Look to see what has actually worked for you. Is it doing videos? Sometimes you don't have to spend any money. You could have YouTube and it could be doing videos. It could be Facebook. I know I get several people that follow me because of Facebook and things like that. Whatever it is, find that thing that people really connect with you on. If you invest money towards connecting with people, right? And connecting in a good, solid way, in a way that's true to you, you'll find that people will respond and you won't be starving for business at all. I'll tell you, it's amazing when you don't have to spend so much time working and hustling, when you can just relax and have the people come to you. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you've been running your podcast. How long you've been doing it?
Well, I had an old podcast I did years ago. That was in 2008 through 2012, and then I relaunched my new show, the Chris Miles Money Show. I launched that one it was 3 years ago, in fact.
And you're saying that you're actually getting business from it. No, this is the kind of information I love to, let go on the show, because even in Jamaica here, a lot of persons are not really consuming podcasts as much. And I have been on this rampage to kind of bring awareness to the opportunities that are available through podcasting. Like myself, I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own clothing line, Patwa Apparel. And also one of the reasons that I decided to start that podcast was that I can, persons can get to know, like, and trust me, and they now can connect even more with my product. And I'm not paying much money for this.
Yeah.
So I can totally relate to what you've just said. I know that you have some freebies that you want to give away to our wonderful community here. So I'm going to ask you to just take us through that and also give us all the different ways in which we may get in contact with you.
Absolutely. So like we just mentioned, if you love listening to podcasts, go on iTunes, follow my show, The Chris Miles Money Show. Amazing information on there. All kinds of things from creating passive income, how one of my clients was able to retire to Bali just last month. Things like that. Like I give really good information for business, finance, and personal development. And then if you like reading, if you like to see things, you can go to my website, www.moneyripples.com. That's MONEYRIPPLES.com. And there's a free ebook on there you can download called Beyond Rice and Beans, 7 Secrets to Free Up Cash Today, which are my, I mentioned like tracking your money and things like that and making more money. I actually give 7 of my top ways that people are actually been able to free up on average over $34,000 US dollars a year doing that. So yeah, check that out.
Amazing. Chris, you have been such a great inspiration. You have been, providing educational stuff for us and informing us and allowing us to think about how it is that we manage our cash flow, manage our companies or our businesses. And so I thank you so much for that insight that you've given us, that you've shared with us. And we wish you all the best as you continue to do what you love.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor, Heneka.
And now a word from our amazing sponsors.
We needed to raise capital, but our experience with local financial institutions was that they were cautious and slow to act, and interest rates were far too high. We had real concerns about financing our business through outside equity investors and the possibility of interference. Could we get a fair valuation for our business? We had our own ideas about the business and its value. Should I go the traditional route of bank financing, or should I try the Jamaica Stock Exchange? So we made a call and experienced transformation of our business through conversations. I'm John Mahfood, CEO of Jamaican Teas, and we're listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Give us a call today at 876-967-3271 to begin your transformation through conversation. We want to see your company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
What do you know? We have come to the end of another great episode of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. I trust that you learned something and that something resonated with you so that you can share with others. And speaking of sharing, I'd so love for you to leave a comment on the show notes page of each episode. Well, we're talking about this one in particular. Leave a comment at the end of the page so that when you go the topic, you click down. And at the end, there is an option there for you to comment. If you're accessing through iTunes, then by all means, I'd love for you to leave a rate and review. That will keep us as a top-rated podcast. It means a lot to me for you to help me out in this way, right? I know you are listening from all over the world, and I so appreciate it, from Japan to Germany to India to Pakistan, everywhere in the Caribbean, in the United States, in Jamaica in particular. Big up my Jamaican peeps. Big up those, of course, in Ohio and all those other states that persons are listening in from, that you are listening in from. I so truly appreciate you. Now, if you want to reach out to me personally, you can actually send me an email, send it to Heneka Watkis-Porter at gmail.com. I am truly looking forward to connecting with you. If you want to send me a voicemail too, you can do that through my website. Just go to the middle at the right of the screen. There is an option for voicemail when you go to HenekaWatkis-Porter.com. I do want to hear from you. Remember, you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. Walk good.